So the first document in our mini-Q after we finish the pre-bucketing exercise on the previous page, first document is going to be titled Document A. Documents are labeled by letters, so we've got 5 documents, documents A through E. First one we'll look at in order is document A, and the source of this document, it's a reading, it's from Dennis Blanton. Its title is from Jamestown's Environment, Center for Archaeological Research, the College of William and Mary. So this is a piece written by Dennis Blanton. And interesting little sidelight, Dennis Blanton is one of the gentlemen in the Jamestown video that we've watched, we will watch in class, who talks about the tree ring data and the evidence that from the tree rings that suggests that or proves that Jamestown was in the middle of a drought in the years after 1607. But in any event, document A is a reading from Dennis Blanton, and it's titled Jamestown's Environment. Let's just take a look at a close reading of it. Many people have commented, Mr. Blanton is writing here, many people have commented over the last 4 centuries on the qualities of Jamestown's environment. Because the adjacent river and creeks became brackish, there is a word you're going to see in this mini-Q. It's also a word that you will see on your Quizlet vocab deck. I'm not going to define it for you here because it's one of the questions following the document that you'll need to figure out. But because the adjacent river and creeks became brackish as water levels rose, reliable sources of fresh water would have been scarce by the 17th century. English colonists dug shallow wells to supply themselves with sources of drinking water, but these were vulnerable to drought and saltwater intrusion. Also, historian Carville V. Earle attributed disease in the early years to Jamestown's position at the salt-freshwater transition, where filth introduced into the river tended to fester rather than flush away. So this historian, Mr. Earle, is attributing disease in the early years there to Jamestown's position at a salt and fresh water transition where filth introduced into the river tended to fester rather than flush away. Fester is another vocab term that you'll need to familiarize yourself with. It is also on the Quizlet deck on Quizlet.com. The island is not situated, Mr. Blanton goes on, at a point of great natural food abundance, especially relative to other locations very close by. Fish are present in local streams, but only in the spring and early summer are they there in impressive abundance. So this piece by Dennis Blanton would have, is what it's doing, it's serving to show you or tell you about some of the challenges that were faced by Jamestown's early settlers. Now, some other notes before we begin to attack the questions below the document. The first Jamestown colonists located their settlement on the James River, 60 miles from the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. The reason they did this, they wanted it to be far enough away from the bay to discourage a Spanish naval attack, while still being in deep enough water to be reachable by English supply and trade ships coming from England. Also, drought would cause several problems. First, it stunted corn growth. Second, it meant that the shallow wells were not being replenished by rainfall. And third, it left brackish, backed up stream water even more brackish. Again, key for you to understand here is you're going to have to understand what the term brackish means in the context of the water at Jamestown. And finally, the best evidence that historians have suggests that most of the deaths in the summer of 1607 were caused by polluted river water rather than famine. The water near the fort was full of slime and filth and resulted in many deaths due to dysentery, salt poisoning, and typhoid. Many of the deaths that occurred more than 12 months later during the starving time appear to be the result of food shortage due to drought. So there's some content notes on the early settlement at Jamestown. Now let's take a moment to look at the document analysis questions at the bottom of page number 55. The first question, again, whenever you're answering questions following a document, the first place you're going to check in order to find the answer is going to be bingo in the document. So question 1 is asking, using context clues, what do you think is meant by brackish water? You'll go up on your own here when you're done with this exercise, and you can reread the source or reread the document, but hopefully you'll have a feel for what the term brackish is going to mean by looking at the context. Because of the adjacent river and creeks, or excuse me, because the adjacent river and creeks became brackish as water levels rose. Now maybe a hint here for you, what is going to cause the water level to rise in Jamestown near the rivers and creeks? What might account for water level rising? That might be a hint to what is going to be the definition of the term brackish. Also, question 2 is going to ask, what twice daily event would cause water levels around Jamestown to rise and cause wells and freshwater streams to become brackish? Hint, think of the moon when answering question 2. Question 3 asks, according to historian Carvel Earl, what happened to human waste that got dumped into the river? Again, you're going to look first in the document to answer that question. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, please answer these questions in complete sentences. Always a good thing to get used to doing, answering your questions in complete sentences. 4th question, what inference can you make about the effect of tides on health in Jamestown? Again, inference, we're asking you to infer something, to make an educated guess. What inference can you make about the effect of tides on health in Jamestown? Those are your questions for document A. And let's not forget question number 5. It's asking you to consider the last paragraph. What time of the year do you think starvation was most likely to happen? Last paragraph here, it's talking about fish. It's talking about the island and how it's situated. So what time of the year, based on the last paragraph, do you think starvation was most likely to happen? Those are the questions for document A. Please take your time and reread the document as many times as needed, and listen to the content notes earlier on in this screencast, and complete the answering of document analysis questions 1 through 5 for document A.